the recent creation of this idea that, well, it's not, I guess it's not that recent, but the more prevalent idea that everything that doesn't agree with the establishment media is fake news. The idea that, because it's not just that, but the idea that if you disagree with Trump's decision to launch the missiles to some Trump fans, that means that you're an establishment shield, and no, it means that I'm objective, and I think that a lot of conservatives agreed with me as well. Mike Cernovich actually went on a rant discussing this, saying that it's ridiculous what Trump did, and it was totally uncalled for, and it was done without any proper authority, no proper investigation. In fact, the committee that is actually in charge of conducting that investigation is JIM. It's the Joint Investigative Mechanism. But the problem is that committee was created by the United States, and it was done so on behalf of the United States, on behalf of the Security Council. But like I said, it was essentially started by the United States, and Russia vetoed that. And we're going to go into why they vetoed that ability for it to be recreated in the beginning. But there's also the neoliberal side. I can't believe you think Assad is an evil man, or not an evil man. And when you ask them, well, why do you think Assad is an evil man? Well, he killed his own people. Well, how do you figure? Where are your facts coming from? And when you ask them where their facts come from, they get real defensive. Are you trying to say there's not a civil war happening? And we're like, I didn't say there's not a civil war happening, but do you even know who the war is between? And where are you getting your facts that Assad has killed all these people? Because it seems to me that the only ones who have agreed that the civil war is that the majority, or at least a good and a large size minority despises Assad, or it despises his father, it seems to me that there's not a lot of proof of that. It seems to me that the only ones who dislike Assad are Saudi Arabians, the ones that I know, and pretty much those who strongly align with Islam, and I guess by connection to those authoritarian governments who kind of base their rule off of their very paternal, patriarchal portrayal of what Islam means. If you are in Saudi Arabia, which of course is a Wahhabist government, they're not actually Islamists. That's whenever people from like the right talk about the Sharia law, that's what they're referring to. And that's why it's actually kind of funny. Even Alex Jones, dumbass, does that, where he tries to say, they want all of us to practice Sharia law, rada, 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 rada. Except for he still praises Trump. Even though he condemned that missile strike, he still praises Trump. But like Sharia law actually, we just got breaking news. Russia just, snaps. Hold on, we got breaking news, people. Like just now. Give me 1 second. No, yeah. Give me 1 second. Where'd it go? Come back up. It said Russia just said that they have 100% proof that the chemical attack was indeed staged. I don't think any of us are surprised by this. Okay, we'll wait for it to come back up. I want to definitely read the article to you all whenever we get done. But so anyway, so in light of all the fake information that has been put out, I definitely want to give a shout out to some of the objective journalists that I trust. Even if I don't always necessarily agree with them, I trust them. So Caitlin Johnstone is one of those journalists that follow her on Twitter. I think her Twitter name is CAITOZ. So Caitlin Johnstone, very she's extremely educated, has a very world It's not. Doesn't have like a Eurocentric or even Australian centric view. Just a very, very knowledgeable world view of politics. Tim Black, obviously another good one. H.A. Goodman, pretty much any of the journalists on the MCSC network. BC DeGraff does very good domestic politics when it comes to recording, rigging, and things like that. If you've ever seen his story or his series called Rigged, he does a fantastic job. Elizabeth Lee Voss, Susie D, the leader of the Internet Party. Elizabeth Lee Voss is from the independent media, or disobedient media, excuse me. And there's one more that I'm missing that's super, man, what's his name from The Intercept? Not Greenwald, is it? Not Greenwald. Maybe it is Greenwald. I think it is Glenn Greenwald from he does The Real News, and he also does Intercept. So I think that is the person I'm talking about. Does fantastic news as well. But you have to remember that just because someone says something that you agree with, if they're picking sides, when I say picking sides, when they approach you with platitudes like, oh, he's a bad guy, so we should absolutely do this, and there's not really any facts or any logic really backing that, and they don't display any actual understanding of the information outside of hearing some buzzwords that they got off of CNN and Fox News outside of Tucker Carlson, then you should be wary of that. Be wary of that because it probably means that they don't know what they're talking about, and they're basing their decision on how they feel about the situation off of an emotional reaction, because quite honestly, our empathy makes us vulnerable. And we feel like if we don't immediately give in to the weight of our emotions at times, then we are bad people, which is simply not the case. So I just wanted to give, some people I trust. And oh yeah, by the way, anybody on the American Freedom Radio Network as well, definitely check those guys out because they're dope. They're dope. And Danny's pretty awesome too. He has a lot of experience with these issues, and he has a lot more knowledge than I do in a lot of these issues sometimes. So definitely check out American Freedom Radio. In today's show, we're going to be discussing whether or not it is Assad who actually is going to end up getting the last laugh, and it looks like he may have already done so. And I'm going to explain that in a second. We're also going to be talking about Andrew McCabe's IG report and the significance of it, because a couple of things happened since the IG report. If you couldn't tell, there was a big interview that came out literally at the same time. So funny. And then we're also going to talk about Zuckerberg selling us out, selling us down the river. I don't think anybody's surprised by that either, but we're going to talk about that. But first, obviously, Syria has been a huge topic for the last few days, and there has been a lot of suppression going on. There's been a lot of coercion going on. In fact, even Mad Dog Mattis, why we have a guy whose nickname is Mad Dog in office right now at any level is a little scary, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But he came out and said that they're going to work hard to the day before they launch, or the day of, I believe. They said they're going to work hard to combat any misinformation. Excuse me, Mr. Mattis. It is not your job to combat misinformation. It is your job as a representative of one of the institutions of the United States of America to encourage free speech. And the way you combat misinformation is to put out your information established deeply in fact, in actual fact, verifiable fact, well corroborated fact. And no matter how much fake news come out, if you're doing the right thing and the logic adds up and matches up and you're being as transparent as humanly possible, then what do you have to worry about if fake news comes out? Quote unquote fake news, which most of the time, by the way, isn't fake. There's only one. I know that CNN and these companies actually verifiably release more fake news than anybody else that I've seen. And that's including like your Newswire. At least your Newswire gets the narrative right every now and then. CNN hasn't gotten a narrative right in forever. But from the moment that happened, everybody should have been suspicious. Because, well, the truth of the matter is, people, the night that those missiles launched, which I think pretty much everybody was paying attention at that point, but the night that those missiles launched, there's a lot of information that came out. One of the main things that came out was that ISIS had put troops on the ground, all of a sudden was invading Damascus, like almost simultaneously as the missile strikes were going off. It was like a coordinated attack. I don't think anybody is surprised by that, considering we've already found out that Hillary Clinton and the State Department and all those, those in cahoots with Qatar and Jordan and Saudi Arabia, that they had been funding these terrorist organizations. And this is not even the first time in history, not even close to the first time in history that we started funding terrorist organizations. Just as a reminder, Osama bin Laden did work for us. But that article just disappeared. It was in the mainstream media source. And I retweeted it, and even the person who originally tweeted it took it down. And so when I went back in the middle of the night to actually go look for the article, it was gone. I'm searching and searching and searching and searching and searching and searching and searching. And then the only reason I was able to find it is because I had to go deep into like Middle Eastern reports when I could finally see, okay, cool. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dreaming. It did happen. It is true. ISIS did march, or they attacked in a very well coordinated and well timed strike against Damascus. Why wasn't that all over mainstream media, people? Think about that. That don't you think that's kind of important? I think so. I feel like it is. If a terrorist organization was able to take advantage of, especially the terrorist organization that we claimed to be there to fight, if they were able to take advantage in such a way that was in such a way that was only made possible because of our attacks, because they had been being pushed back, remember, for a very long time. In fact, ISIS at one point was completely out of the region, coincidentally enough, when we pulled out. And then we attacked, and all of a sudden they're ready and raring to go. And that's scary that wasn't being reported, because we all know what that means, right? It just reaffirms what we already kind of know, that the United States is clearly and unofficially working with terrorist groups to try and unseat Assad. It's insane. What the other thing that did not get shown was the fact. The other thing that did not get shown was the fact that that came up briefly too yesterday, and then it was scrapped. Rebels switched sides because the United States bombed them by accident. And you know how the United States is. We're indiscriminate. We only protect our interests. So a lot of rebels switch sides. On top of that, it turns out that because of the Syrian their missile defense systems, they actually blocked out 70% of the airstrikes, which is pretty impressive. But what's also uncomfortable, what's probably the most uncomfortable, is the casualty count. Now, I know a lot of you are probably like, well, what do you mean, Nico? We haven't seen any casualties. Yeah, you don't have a number, do you? You literally have no idea how many casualties there were. They're claiming, like the United States and the Western powers are claiming that they went into Damascus and they bombed Damascus specifically to take out the chemical weapons plants that the Syrian government supposedly created. Okay, got it. And it was just well targeted, and they were well organized, and apparently they can literally thread the needle. They were surgical with those drones in the middle of the night. Google right now, people, how many casualties there were. and you cannot find out. But I want to give you an example or an analogy analogy to compare the situation and realize how ridiculous that sounds, right? So they bombed Damascus. Damascus is the capital of Syria, and they only bombed chemical weapons plants, right? So let's just replace chemical weapons with like Best Buys, because there's not a lot of them in a given area, but there's like maybe 2 or 3 per big city, especially like a capital city. So let's just say there were 2 or 3 Best Buys in LA, and the United States says, or Russia's like, okay, we're gonna bomb all the Best Buys because we're tired of people being inside their iPhones all the time. We're just sick of this, and we're just gonna bomb them. And this is not even a capital city. I'm just using LA because it's a big city, but any capital city really, but specifically LA. How many people live in capital cities? How many people work inside of these plants? How many people work right outside of these plants? How many people live in the vicinity of these plants? How many people are just driving by in these plants? How many people do you think could have and probably were hurt? The answer is, we don't know, but it's more than 0. Now, I wonder why they wouldn't actually announce the casualty count. I wonder why they wouldn't announce the casualty count. Maybe because they have been claiming this entire time that they're bombing Assad for humanitarian reasons, that they're bombing these chemical plants for humanitarian reasons. But in all likelihood, people, they probably killed more innocent people than they were to likely even destroy 1 or 2 chemical plants successfully to the point where they couldn't be rebuilt. It's just simple common sense. I don't know why I have to explain it to people. But we do. And even still, so let's once again take into account the fact that Damascus is the capital city. And once again, people tend to live in capital cities. That's why they're the capital. Innocent people usually tend to live in these cities too. You said that we're going to destroy the chemical weapons plants and the chemicals inside the chemical weapons plants to protect people in the city from Assad, who apparently allegedly used the chemical weapons in the chemical weapons plant. And so that way they cannot be used on the people again. And okay, so your solution to protecting people from the chemical weapons is to detonate or destroy or bomb chemicals? What happens to the chemicals? They just get sucked into, they just implode into a black hole? You hear the problem with that logic? By supposedly or allegedly destroying these chemical weapons plants, the alleged chemical weapons plants that nobody's actually confirmed have been destroyed, by the way. It looks to me like you're kind of self-defeating. You're defeating what purpose does it serve to destroy chemical weapons plants that are clearly, supposedly, if they are actual chemical weapons plant, they have chlorine and sarin that they're using in these chemical weapons, supposedly. They detonate. The sarin gas at that point would not just, spontaneously manifest into bubbles. They wouldn't just become these fluffy little cotton bubbles or cotton candy bubbles that people can just eat out the sky. No, that's not how it works. If you destroy chemicals and light them on fire, odds are people are going to get hurt by them. Now, what's my point in telling you this? My point in telling you this is that now, more than ever, and this is coming once again from somebody who's been paying attention to politics. Now, more than ever, Assad is probably going to end up getting the last laugh on all of this. Because those of us who are educated have, we've seen the pattern already. We already know what happened with Gaddafi. We already know what happened with Saddam. We already know what's happened to regime after regime. They were called regimes. I don't even like using that word sometimes. But I just use it because it's a word that a lot of people understand, at least. But regime after regime after regime after regime after regime, all these horrible stories come out, and it's the same story. Somebody wins a revolution against a super authoritarian dictator. Usually a dictator put in place at the time when it first started. Usually they were put in place by Great Britain, and then we've replaced them either on behalf of Great Britain or on our own behalf for economic reasons or like resource reasons. And then they come up with some crazy story about how they were just monsters. And it's insane to me how these monsters always manage to stay in power until our country gets involved. Because usually with the revolution people, if the economics don't work, they're going to overthrow you and they're going to be successful. You got enough pissed off people not putting food on the table, they are going to overthrow you when it comes to a revolution. If it's as bad as the United States says it is oftentimes. So now with Assad, we're seeing an attempt to repeat what we have seen constantly in the past, but it's a little bit different now. We don't have to blindly accept the narrative being portrayed by the United States government, especially when we can just as easily figure out the reality that you didn't investigate anything. And in fact, the next morning, Assad said, come in and investigate. Or the morning before, he said, come in and investigate. And that night, they set it off. I'm telling you, they're like, oh, he's hiding things. He's hiding, clearly. So, okay, come in and investigate. Even Mattis said multiple times, time again, that we don't have any proof. But he did say in February, we don't have proof, but we're going to find some. It's not a good sign. So now because of this, like I said, rebels have switched sides into Assad's army. It's been exposed that ISIS is working along the United States, Great Britain, and France. Now more people than ever have Googled Assad, have looked up his past, have looked up his history. And they're starting to see, like, this guy is he was a doctor in the field. He's not a killer. In fact, seems to be the total opposite of a killer. Then he went to ophthalmology school. Very well dressed man. He's not even a braggadocio. Because it's funny because people if somebody told me Fidel was at some level a killer, like, I believe that. I 100% believe that. He walks around with the hat on, the military uniform all the time. Gaddafi, braggadocious guy, looks like he's not to be messed with. I love my people, but you step on my toes and you gotta go. I could believe that. Saddam, same way. Just a very braggadocious, got my medals everywhere, got my hat on, looking good, and that's how that's how they carry themselves. Like don't mess with me. Assad walks around in a black suit and tie. Sometimes the tie is red when he feels like getting frisky. He doesn't have this air of cockiness and well the same, essentially take the opposite of Trump, and that's pretty much what Assad is. He doesn't walk around with badges on from his military days. He doesn't walk around with it or have a picture of himself on everybody's wall. There's no statues of Assad in Syria. He doesn't walk around wielding his religion in an authoritarian manner. In fact, the country itself is secular. Assad looks like if he had to pull the trigger, he wouldn't even be able to be totally honest with you. And he has the mannerisms of a nerd, if we're going to be honest. Like he was a dork in high school. But people are starting to look there, and they're like matching things up. And they're like, hold on, this don't make any sense. He don't look like a killer. But then the media will confuse everybody and like, yeah, he's a military genius. That's why he's able to do what he does and has been able to last for so long against the rebels. Why would a military genius decide to go ahead and launch a chemical attack on his own people, like while he's literally about to win the war, knowing that the U.S. would get involved? Better yet, think about it like this. If I'm Russia and we're close allies, I wouldn't like it if Assad would bomb his own people, because that delegitimizes my allegiance to you, and it really messes up what my goals are economically when it comes to the oil pipeline. Because I know that Russia does have a vested interest in the success of Syria as well. I'm not naive to that. So would Russia eagerly come to the defense of Assad if Russia was if Assad committed a chemical weapons attack that would clearly be a detriment to whether or not Russia could be successful in their ventures, their financial ventures in Syria? No. They would condemn it openly and say, no, you can't do that, because they don't want any beef between people. But everybody agrees that ISIS is fighting, that Syria, the government and Assad is fighting ISIS. Everybody agrees on that, apparently. We've been saying this. So we agree that the Syrian government is fighting ISIS. And by the way, it wouldn't make for some, because the question could be and should be asked, why would ISIS want to destroy the Syrian government? For the same reason that the United States does. But it's for different purposes. ISIS they're extremists. They're Islamic extremists. Syria is secular. And they are almost, operationally, they're an entirely different breed than a lot of these Muslim countries. They're an entirely different breed than Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Qatar, even I'm missing one. Can't think of it right now. But my point is that they're secular. They don't have a World Bank or a national bank that's attached to the World Bank. They do have a national bank, but it's theirs. They have no allegiance to religion, and therefore no allegiance to this supreme authority that nobody can see. With that blind faith, you got to have blind faith. It's funny. I always say, because I'm a very spiritual person. You all know this. I'm not a hyper religious person, but I am super spiritual. But I'm most of all objective. And I find it interesting that in the Old Testament, which is the one where God walks around swinging his Johnson around, telling people, listen to me or go to hell and I'll kill you and I'll flood your cities. And, I call that the insecure testament. That's the testament that the insecure, Ashkenazi white Jewish people in the past wrote, because they didn't know how to control people. Death wasn't that big of a threat because everybody was dying. So they say, yo, you got to go to hell. Like, we got to give an option. Right. So that's the side that says blind faith. Don't question me. Don't ever think that you can question me. And that's the same testament that's found, or the same, basic testament or outline of God in the Quran and in the Torah, and so, because obviously, the Old Testament is based off the Torah. So on the other side of that fence, though, you got Jesus, when they're like, how do we know you're the Son of God? He didn't be like, you better listen to me because, hey, I'm Jesus. And he didn't hit you with the fallacy of the appeal to authority. He wasn't like, you know what? Damn all that. I don't gotta, look at this. Water, wine, boom. Oh, you need more proof? Look at this bread. Boom. Oh, you need more proof? How many days I need? You said I can't resurrect myself in 5 days? I'll do it in 3. Boom. Look at me. Back alive after I'm dead. They crucified me, but I'm back alive. Like, the point that I'm trying to express here is that in that part of the Bible, coincidentally enough, Jesus actually provided proof of his divinity. Now, whether or not you want to believe in that part, the divinity part, is irrelevant to my point. My point is the philosophy is more closely related to how the rest of the world governs themselves. As in, we need the facts. You're not just gonna, but think about it like this though. Which side of the country, I want y'all to understand this parallel. Which side of the country in the United States is like, we have to believe the cops and trust in them no matter what. We can't question them. If you question them, then you're questioning authority. Blue Lives Matter. What side of the country is that? I think that's the red side, isn't it? Don't question them. The military, that's authority. We can't, that's the troops. Don't question them. Interesting. Which side of the country is like super Christian, but they're very selective in their Christianity when they want to apply that? You think that's a coincidence? You think that the Blue Lives Matter crowd, the blind authority to believe that if you have a badge on, you can never be wrong? You think that's coincidence that they're the super religious ones? And if you think it's a coincidence, I'll offer you this. Why is it then every government that the United States attempts to replace is for the most part secular, for the most part independent of an authority outside of their own, and they've either toppled a hyper-religious authoritative government, and if they do get toppled by the United States, they're replaced with the religious authoritative government? Because when you believe in blind faith, the kind of blind faith that's taught in the Old Testament, instead of believing in the proof is in the pudding philosophy, like what's preached in the New Testament by Jesus himself, there's a reason that that the Quran makes sure, like, oh, hold on, bro. Jesus was cool, but he wasn't all that. Because Jesus was saying, look, I'll show and prove. I don't have to gas myself, people. He preaches against religion. He preaches against, my point is that blind authority. So now you probably are starting to get a picture. You're starting to get a picture of why we want places like Syria and Iran to be religious. Iran used to be secular, then they went hyper religious, then they revolutionized again, and then they're like teetering right now, but they're becoming secular again. They're becoming secular right now. Iran is like in a battle to the point where even though the current president is religious, the platform that he ran on was purely economic, and he explicitly makes it known that we're not focused on social issues, which means maintaining religion. They're focused on economic growth and development of their people in whatever direction they want to go into. So, what a coincidence that Syria and Iran are like top on the hit list. Every damn day, Israel's talking about how much Iran wants to destroy them. Oh God. Oh, woe is me. Woe is me. Iran wants to destroy me. If Iran wanted to destroy Israel, they'd be dead by now. So I'm going to make that clear. But it gets even better because economically, remember, they swear to God, these countries, if that government is bad, they don't believe in capitalism, even though the very first, I think one of the first revolutions, Iran had like literally the most capitalist guy ever, super democratic, very well educated, but he was secular and he believed in democracy. So they were like, he has to go. And then you have a really nice economy. Believe it or not, North Korea had the largest, fastest growing economy out of the Korean War in the entire world. Cuba also had a booming economy as well. I mean, if you think about it logically, people, do y'all think communism, quote unquote, was what destroyed Cuba? If communism was what destroyed Cuba and they didn't have any resources, then why was the United States just ridiculously invested into Cuba? Maybe it's because they did have all the resources and they didn't want Cuba trading those resources with other people because those resources, like sugar, are extremely valuable. Maybe. And then Syria, obviously completely oil rich, free of the national bank, no debt to the IMF, by the way. So in other words, they can never be subject to austerity. Iran was the same way. And all of a sudden, we put an embargo on them or block people from trading with them or block people from selling to them. But if they have bad economies, why would you do that? And then better yet, if it's for humanitarian reasons, why does it really does that hurt the government or does it hurt the people? It hurts the people. And they want the people to then believe that their government is failing them. However, it is the Western governments that are putting chokeholds on governments who do not bend at their will. Now, then the conversation becomes, Cuba can't provide for their own people. Look at how bad this leader is. He's starving his people. Look at how bad Assad is. Look at their living conditions. Look at how bad Iran is doing. Look at their living conditions. If they were good leaders, if their form of government worked, then they would blah, blah, blah. Even North Korea, to a degree, that's true, by the way. Venezuela has that problem. Brazil has that problem right now, and we're so blind to it. The only reason we're blind to Brazil's problems is because they're part of NAFTA. And Mexico has that problem too, and we create the poverty in Mexico, people. We created the inflation in Brazil. Brazil has the same, they have, if not a larger country than we do, they have this access to this exact same resources we do, this exact same natural resources we do. They have that very unique flavor of ethnic and racial diversity that the United States has. But for some reason, for some God-known reason, or I guess the reason only God would know, they just can't get right. Their inflation is up and down, up and down, up and down. Maybe because the United States did it. We did it. Because Brazil, if there was ever a country that was competition for the United States, imagine having the United States, right, and everything that we have, all the benefits of the United States, and put it all into Miami. And that's Brazil. You don't think that they would be a little bit of a competition for us internationally? I'm trying to tell y'all, man. They got to get woke out here. But all the countries that may be appealing or appeasing to you, or that would have been, we choke out and convince you that it's horrible there, and that way of life is horrible, and their philosophy is horrible. I want to move on to the next topic. James Comey and Andrew McCabe. As you all know, Andrew McCabe actually released they had the OIG report, the Office of Inspector General report, released this weekend. And it was bombshell after bombshell after bombshell. A few of the lies that were told. It says shortly after the Wall Street Journal article, McCabe made statements that led Comey to believe that McCabe had not authorized the disclosure to a Wall Street Journal reporter and did not know who did. On May 9th, 2017, when questioned under oath by the FBI agents from the INSD, McCabe told the agents that he had not authorized the disclosure of the Wall Street Journal, and did not know who did. July 28th, which is after May 2017, when questioned under oath by the OIG in a recorded interview, McCabe stated that he was not aware of the FBI Special Counsel Lisa Page having been authorized to speak to reporters around October 30th, and B, that because he was not in Washington, D.C. on October 27th and 28th of 2016, he was unable to say where Page was or what she was doing at that time. However, the text messages between the FBI lovers and between McCabe and Page revealed that they maintained close contact the entire time she was speaking to the Wall Street Journal reporter. That's a little bit of a contradictory statement. So that's a lie. Mind you, that entire situation when McCabe was blamed on Trump, it was a bunch of lies about myself, it was my family, he's trying to discredit my career, I just want my retirement. He's been playing the neoliberals. Now this is a huge report, but it's some other stuff that happens too. According to, on October 25th, 2016, after being informed that Barrett was working on a related article to the Clinton Foundation that might further implicate McCabe's conflicts of interest that we have been talking about on this network and this channel and on my show for how long? How long have we been? If you have not subscribed, you want to be ahead of the game, you need to subscribe. You need to follow this channel, you need to like, because I ask anybody in these comment sections. I don't know how many times I've said the name McCabe and conflict of interest in the same sentence since really the end of 2016. People, I've been saying this. The OIG has now found out that I am not completely full of shit. But related said that the article may be related to the McCabe's conflict of interest in overseeing the Clinton investigations, while his wife was receiving campaign donations from Clinton confidants. Man, it's almost like myself, Tim, H.A. Goodman, Caitlin Johnstone, and the others have been saying this exact same thing. So what you're telling me, Mr. OIG, Mr. Office of Inspector General, Mr. Inspector General, Mr. Justice Department guy, is that we're not fake news? But Zuckerberg would have us to believe that we're full of it. That we're lying to the crowd. That we're spreading fake news so that Russia can take over our democracy. That's what Zuck is telling us. He combating fake news. People like us throttling us back, removing us from your timelines, blocking us from sharing. Twitter's doing the same thing. Google's doing the same thing. Hiring people to monitor fake news. But if anybody has watched my old videos, and I strongly encourage you to do so, this without even all of this information, without even a direct interview, we figured out this information with deductive reasoning, with gathering outside sources and drawing conclusions that anybody else should have been able to figure out. Any investigator, any legitimate investigator should have been able to figure out, but could not figure out because they weren't looking. Now, if I myself, as a journalist with just an iPad and 4 cats and a dog, they didn't really pull their fair share of the load. Okay, I had to do a lot of that. Asher and King wouldn't stop playing. Kane, my dog, is in his own little world. Luna don't even care about me sometimes, and Nala just screams in my face and wants me to pet her. So pretty much all the investigations I was doing myself. And if I can do that and find out all this stuff about McCabe, what the hell is Special Counsel Mueller doing? That's what I'm trying to figure out. What is Special Counsel Mueller doing? What? You were an FBI director, and you can't even ask the right people the right question at the right time. But I digress. Let me continue. He questioned him about the call to the principal associate and deputy, the principal associate deputy attorney general at the Department of Justice. According to McCabe, the phone call with the PATAG, it was heated. The PATAG expressed concerns about the FBI agents taking over steps in the Clinton Foundation investigation during the presidential campaign. I'm pretty sure he had a right to feel that way. So at least we know that there were some people doing their jobs. But according to McCabe, he pushed back, asking, "Are you telling me that I need to shut down a validly predicated investigation?" If we can trust McCabe's recollection, this is another bombshell that Loretta Lynch's DOJ tried to help the Clinton campaign by pressuring the FBI during an active investigation. Essentially, what that means is that the PATAG, principal associate of the Attorney General, was asked by Loretta Lynch to cancel the investigation, and even McCabe supposedly had to push back, saying, "Are you asking me to shut down an investigation that actually should be investigated?" And this is from his words, not Donald Trump's. Now, funny enough, can you believe it that in the same weekend, James Comey had a ground-breaking interview? I think it was NBC, ABC News. Had a ground-breaking interview. In the same weekend this OIG report comes out. You can't make this stuff up, people. How are you going to have a groundbreaking interview on the same weekend a report about the guy that you hired comes out? And you know what he said in those interviews? He was just so, I'm so surprised. I walked into Trump's office so innocently, and he said, "You know, I just want to let you know that there's a dossier out there about you, man." And he asked me, he said, "Do I look like I would have Russian prostitutes?" And this whole time, I'm thinking, do I give a damn if Trump has Russian prostitutes? I don't care who he has sex with while he was in Russia. If anything, I'm just under the firm belief that if Trump had Russian prostitutes while he was over there, that he's pretty much more of a politician than I originally thought, because that's kind of like a normal thing for politicians. There's like a whole hotel thing that they have. There's like a whole suite that they have in Washington for politicians to have sex with people that happen to be taking money for sex. Okay, so that would make him kind of a normal politician. In fact, it would probably help him boost in the polls. But that's neither here nor there. My point is that McCabe did a lot of ad hominem against Donald Trump. True. But he also tried to reveal his efforts, and he said, "We don't ever try to help the media steer. We don't do that." Bro, he literally, I'm not joking, people. He said this in the interview, that they don't help the media the White House or anybody in any administration try to steer in one direction or the other. Mind you, he was the one who leaked all this information to people, not the dossier. But he was the one who was leaking information to the media. That wasn't even true, by the way. This guy has to be the biggest laughingstock of the intelligence community in history. I've never seen, and it's actually a pattern that we're seeing now, in case you haven't noticed. We've been seeing the intelligence community come out in front of a camera time and time again, getting jobs at ABC, CNN, MSNBC, telling us exactly how they conduct their investigations, telling us just trust us. They say these things, which probably even more scary. They say things like, can you believe that Trump is suggesting that we don't trust the CIA and the FBI? How could anyone agree with that? He's destroying our very institutions. That's what we call appeal to authority. Now, luckily, a lot of the hyper-religious freaks have kind of went on the Trump train, so they're not buying that. But at one point in time, and really for as long as we can probably remember at this point, the CIA and the FBI was dominantly conservative. And if you ever question what the CIA or the FBI was doing, especially overseas, then you're a communist. If you ever question the fact that the CIA and the FBI seemingly called every person who was for black liberty, a communist, you're a communist. Like, isn't that kind of weird that the CIA says that Martin Luther King is like maybe a communist sympathizer? You're a communist. We don't like Martin Luther King. So, funny enough, because neoliberals tend to ascribe to their personal ambitions and their emotions. That is their authority. Now they're doing the same thing that they used to complain the right did. I can't believe you would question the Honorable James Comey. Y'all didn't even know who James Comey was. Y'all didn't even like James Comey. But that's the Honorable James Comey. James Comey is on Twitter like, bro, you were Intel. Intel people don't talk a lot. They're supposed to keep to themselves. And then he's like, I can't believe that Donald Trump fired me. It was unprecedented. Yeah, well, somebody kind of trying to undermine the office of the President of the United States is kind of like, to that degree, is a little unprecedented as well. And the firing of James Comey was the best decision, one of the best decisions, I believe, that Donald Trump made. One of the very few good decisions that he made. And what was impressive to me on that side of the fence is that Donald Trump actually, with the McCabe situation, which was smart, was intelligent enough to do it the right way. Because now you got the Office of Inspector General involved. We end up with these reports. And now, because Trump actually was patient and did the right thing in the right way, he put Jeff Sessions in this situation where he had to fire McCabe. He put the OIG in a situation where he had to take care of James Comey's information as well. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes for a call-in show in the last part of the show. And then we'll take care of y'all from there. Can't wait to hear from you. What is going on, everybody? We are back in business. You are tuning into our second portion and our call-in portion of Mi Casa Es Su Casa. And as usual, I am your host, Nico House. Before we get into our call-in show, I just want to break this news to you, and then we'll go ahead and get you all on the line. Let's see, we already have some people waiting. It turns out that we thought that there was nothing that came from the Zuckerberg trial in the Senate. It was kind of weird. It was really awkward. I don't even know why they did it. And then this comes out. And this is coming from Zuckerberg, by the way. Starts off by saying, but this transparency effort relies on Facebook users to take initiative themselves. So the company is also opening a new academic research program as it searches for outside scrutiny from experts. You're going to love who these experts are. Under that program, the company will give a committee of steering academics unprecedented access to Facebook. Because that's exactly what we wanted, Zuckerberg. After we complained about all of our information being sold and given to people to be analyzed, we wanted it to be given for free this time. That's exactly what we wanted. So, sitting side by side with their data scientists, a spokesperson told me, and identified major research questions about the social network. The committee, organized by the Social Science Research Council, will then announce a call for papers and issue grants to fund the research, which is also scary as hell. If you've ever wondered why you're not allowed to question how all of a sudden the FDA and all scientists everywhere got vaccines 100% right the first time, and that there are absolutely no side effects by giving every single person and every single child the exact same dosage of vaccine at the most developmental stage of that person's life, every single time, there's just absolutely no, that's why. You ever wonder why weed is legal or illegal, excuse me? That's why. You ever wonder why you're allowed to consume things that give you ridiculous side effects, and then they figure out after you die, man, you should probably sue them because they screwed you. That's one of those research companies. But there's nothing wrong that ever comes. Nothing wrong ever came from a research group that was paid for and given grants for, and people's jobs and livelihoods and scholarships and institutions rely on these grants. And so therefore, they will provocate and perverse data according to the money being given to them. But hey, that never been an issue. Both the committee of academics and their research grants will be funded by a group of independent foundations, including the Hewlett Foundation and the Omidyar Network and the Charles Koch Foundation. Unlike current studies about Facebook, which are conducted in conjunction with the company's product team, Facebook would not be able to review these academic papers before they are published. Woo! That is not good, people. That is not good. You know what they just told us in a nutshell? We're about to get Facebook is giving the Koch brothers and all these other major think tanks all of our information to study us, because, well, to be truthful and honest, they have no idea what the hell is going on in the world. They don't understand why this cultural shift in consciousness and awareness is happening. Why are there so many people interacting? Why isn't racism working as much anymore? Why are people choosing to be more educated? Why aren't people believing us? Why aren't they blindly obeying our authority? How did Hillary not win if Trump is so bad? Do people act, they don't understand this. So what they are doing is taking it's literally split 50%. Some 50% of people get their news from Facebook. Obviously, there are 50% of people who don't. So they either get their news from Facebook, but also obviously there's a lot of people who use Facebook to interact with people, products. You can use someone's are they vegan? What were they doing in the past? Where do they live at? How did they vote? How would they vote based off of that? What candidate are they talking about, not talking about? What comes up in their feeds more often? You get what I'm saying, people? That's dangerous. And then what comes next is the plausible deniability on Facebook's behalf, because now Facebook will not have access to the data that they've already had access to, because that's how they're giving them to the research groups. I want to know what y'all think about that. We do have 2 callers on the line. 856, you are live. What's going on?
Hey, Nico. Alan Cannon here.
What's up, Alan? How you doing, man?
Hey, doing pretty good. Just listening to the show and trying to get my head around the repercussions of this weekend bombshell.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are. It was a weird moment. I know as a lot of people, it was kind of like a very depressing moment, but it was kind of an impactful and a moment of hope, in my opinion, because for the first time, everybody was paying attention and everybody was felt affected by it, and people couldn't sleep that night. And it was the first thing on people's minds when they woke up. And we've all received updates from CNN, MSNBC, all those about Syrian chemical weapons attacks in the past. But I think that you would agree it was probably different this time.
Well, the problem is that there's a YouTube video circulating where the Russians actually had a meeting and described the meeting that they had with the American envoy. And there's a woman who's translating the Russian into English as he's speaking.
Mm-hmm.
something of that magnitude is what should have been on CNN, NBC, MSNBC, ABC, and CBS. But people don't know it exists.
Oh, of course.
And I was lucky enough to find it and repost it. Of course, you know, our normal channels, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms will probably flag it and pull it. But the point is that if as you say, if all of this is just racially motivated, one race feels as though they have the right to go and destroy the lifestyle of any nation that's not there, that doesn't mirror their philosophies or accept their domination. That's what this weekend is really about.
Yeah. That's hugely important. A lot of people really take that for granted. I think that because everybody wants to say it's only economic, no, you can't really begin to talk about solving a problem until you're going to acknowledge all of the aspects of the problem. Like, that's like saying you're going to cure cancer because you figure out a way to create a Miracle Grow hair. Like, no, you just learn a better way to decorate it, but that doesn't cure the problem. Money is a huge part of what happens. But the thing is, people don't question why we are willing to, to impose our will on certain countries for money, but not others. Like, why we're willing to use Agent Orange on Vietnamese people and nuclear weapons on Japanese people, but Nazis literally use chemical weapons on Americans. Nazis obviously killed 6 million Jewish people and started, a war that killed countless others. And yet we didn't use anything really on Nazis. We didn't use any chemical agents on Nazis. We've never used chemical agents on any Eastern European countries. We never used chemical agents or any type of atomic weapon on Russia. But yet we go into Venezuela, Honduras, Haiti, every country that don't have the same religion as us, speak the same language as us, or have the same skin tone of the majority of our population.
Well, the other concerning fact is that while we're up in arms about chemical warfare, we are missing the point that all American citizens are already under chemical warfare by the same people who are trying to dominate other nations. Mm-hmm. Our food, our water, the cosmetics, everything that we use and we introduce into our body has a negative effect. Mm-hmm. And those things that are natural are not regulated, therefore are not propagated. And we're sitting here, I saw a meme the other day. The guy said, you got plastic all over your body, but you want to tell me how to eat healthy. So that means that we are indoctrinated to introduce all these foreign objects into our body. We think highly of celebrities that get a certain result from plastic surgery, lipo, breast augmentation, gastric bypass, all of these things that people are accepting. Mm-hmm. When we should be having a society which accepts you as you are, which is in direct conflict to what we do to the globe.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean,
can a person live the way they live, not hurting anybody, and just be accepted?
Yeah. And then what's crazy about that is when we want to live naturally, in whatever way, form, or fashion they may be, we're literally and legally not allowed to do so in an extensive or substantial way. Like the other day I was talking, I can have a garden. Is that garden enough to get me through winter? Can I grow enough food without going to jail to get me through winter? Hell no. I go to jail. If I can have,
you can't even get enough food to get you through summer.
Yeah, exactly. And I can drink water out of my faucet. Obviously, that's regulated. But if I try to collect rainwater, if I try to use a solar panel solely to live off of, I'm going to jail. But solar panels are much healthier. You know, like it's the healthier the lifestyle, the more it's condemned, scarily enough, under law. You know, we got to deal with, like I said, vaccines. I'm not really on the extremist side of any camp. But what I am saying is that if anybody ever tried to tell me that the FDA just has my best interests at heart, and for the first time in history, they got it right. And vaccines have 0 side effects. And we can apply them equally across the board, no matter what race, gender, ethnicity, background, whatever, and have no side effects to anybody. I'm going to tell you, you're an idiot and you need to do some research, because the FDA has never gotten it right. Ever. They're about to...
We know by being in the service that we are inoculated with things that we don't even know that we're going to face.
Yep.
So, to make a vaccine or inoculation mandatory for education, like if your kids are not vaccinated, they can't go to school.
Yeah.
So, to bring what you just said in perspective, a tragic illness that affects so many millions of Americans is diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
But diabetes, the medicine which we are all living off of, who have diabetes, is proven to, degrade your liver.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
So instead of metformin, yeah. But instead of pushing society to natural remedies, they propagate things like the food pyramid.
Yeah, which is way off.
The food pyramid, when you study it, it actually is way off.
Yeah.
It's why you get fat and why you get diabetes. And it takes researchers to find out what are the keys to turning back on the bodily functions. But those bodily functions are unique to each and every ethnicity.
So Alan,
a person who,
I want to bring the focus back in. So as far as Syria is concerned, what do you feel is the logical next step for the movement against these ridiculous proxy wars? Because you're a veteran, you had a lot more time in than I had, so you saw a lot more up close, and you even worked in positions where you got to see operational things up close. So what do you feel like the logical next step in the movement is?
As you highlighted, money is the issue. So the battle is about where does the money come from,
mm-hmm.
and where does the money go? But the money is all ours. The tax money is all ours. It comes from our pockets. Every dime corporations make comes from our pockets, because they already spent the money they got from us last month.
Oh yeah, they spent that a year ago.
So if you control the seats in the House of Representatives, then the people have their voice. The House of Representatives is reconstituted every 2 years. So we can totally change every representative. That's the stopgap for the Senate, doing whatever it's doing in the interest of the states to make war possible.
Mm-hmm.
If the House of Representatives didn't approve the budget, the omnibus bill that just went forth, it has like $1 billion just to change out all the voting machines to machines that they can't rig, to that machines that they can hide the rigging better. That's what they're doing. So to stop the wars, you have to gain power over the seats that approve the money for the wars.
Absolutely.
And the only way we do that is that on a local level, everybody who's upset about wars, they need to apply for those seats on those committees. The Democrat committee,
and
Republican committee,
just to briefly
committee,
just to interject,
All of those
your commissioners, y'all take for granted commissioners, but those are the ones who fund everything. They approve of the funding.
No,
they divert.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on. The way it works is that if you're friendly with the party on the local, you get the line. You can't get the line unless you wait your turn.
Mm-hmm.
You can't wait your turn unless you kiss in the butt of the people who are already in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Those people set up the line on the ballot. Those people are the ones who are friendly to the party. They become the commissioners.
Yep.
The base is, and those people are elected. That's why what happened to the Bernie delegates was so. It was a felony because those people are elected on the same ballots that federal seats are elected on. And anytime there's a tampering on a federal ballot, which has a candidate that's running for a federal seat, it becomes a felony in itself.
Yep. All right, man. So we're gonna take some other calls. Alan, tell the people where to find you at.
You can find me on Twitter at AJC, the number 4, the word others. You can look at my Instagram and my Facebook. Just type in my name, Alan J. Cannon, and all my stuff will just pop up. It's all there for everybody to see.
So once again, people, that is AJC for the number and others on Twitter, and you can look him up on Twitter, or excuse me, on Facebook and Instagram at Alan Cannon. He is one of the members of our MCSC network. He has his own blog as well. You can find it there. He does some writing, and we'll be doing a podcast for the network also. So definitely go check him out. I appreciate you stopping by. Is that Suzanne Murphy on my line?
It is, Nico. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic, Suzanne. How about yourself?
Good. I'm enjoying the comments on the timeline as well as that first caller. I've seen his tweet, and I can tell you he's sharp. He's on it. He's got the beat on things. So I encourage our members to follow him. It's wonderful.
Definitely. Alan's a good guy. He's smart. He got a lot of experience in both he was active duty military, he was reserved. He worked on both the human resources side and on the combat side too, I believe. So he's worked on in every aspect of the Army. And so he has a lot of experience, and he also has held until very, very recently elected office. So, but what's going on, Suzanne? So people who don't know, Suzanne and I were actually talking the other day, and she told me, she said, you know what's going on with this Facebook, this judiciary hearing is a farce, it's a facade, and we're gonna have a bunch of crazy stuff happen around the same time to pretty much make us ignore what actually took place, and then there's gonna be some hardcore stuff coming down where we kind of lose control if we ever had any of what we do on social media in general. We'll start to see it, kind of trends develop because of that. And it looks like you were correct.
Sadly. And I'm sure I'm probably not, certainly not going to trademark that opinion, but as an observer of what's been going on in the political landscape, and I think even more acutely in the media, because that's been our focus. What I went back and did was I did some research, and I have been tracking not just story volume and pattern, but if you roll back, I think when you and I spoke, I said let's look at the situation with Equifax way back whenever they first broke the Equifax data breach story. Everybody was talking about it, the media was on it, everybody was leaning forward. This was just an awful thing, and we're gonna call them to task and have inquiries, and the state attorney generals were filing suits.
Hold on, hey Suzanne, 1 second. We got some breaking news, people. It has just been confirmed that Israeli cruise missiles just tried to target Syria, but were just shot down. So that literally just came across the screen. Wow, that's actually some pretty huge news. That's something we're gonna talk about later. But go ahead. Sorry about that. I just want to let everybody know that I'm pretty sure we're in the middle of World War III, but let's continue because I think that's pretty much been the norm for the last 70 years. So I don't think anybody's too surprised. Go ahead, Suzanne. Hello. I think we might have just lost Suzanne. All right, hopefully Suzanne comes back. I think we might have just lost her signal. But yes, people, we did just, like I said, we just got a breaking news update that Syrian military confirms Israeli missiles targeted the airbase in eastern Homs, which is obviously in Syria. I am kind of confused, people. I think, given the volatility that's been going on between Israel, Iran, Syria, U.S., Britain, and France, given the fact that these chemical weapons attacks happen, given the fact, even better, given the fact that Israel claims to be the victim all the time. Kaylin Johnstone, we got Suzanne back. Okay. Suzanne, you back? Suzanne?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. We lost you for a second there. I don't know what happened. You disappeared. But yeah, we just had to give that breaking news. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but go ahead. You were saying about Equifax.
Yeah, well, when we were all watching what was unfolding with Equifax, of course, I took particular interest in it because of my line of business. But this has happened before. It's happened well before Equifax. It's an old game with the media, and it's something that we need to pay close attention to, which is, as they talked about, we're going to hold them accountable. The Attorney General offices were filing suits against Equifax. More information started to come out. What happened is when Equifax actually went to the Hill, and that's what I would love the viewers to look for, is when start keeping track of the legislative information as far as when these people are brought before Congress and are forced to testify or invited to testify to the inquiry. You will see the bigger the issue is, the more important the issue is to our national interest and the citizens. You will typically see another major event go down at the same time. So the narrative and the dialogue gets switched to Syria bombing. When did Zuckerberg go on to testify? He testified, and it was announced well in advance. When did we decide to go in and bomb Syria? Same week.
Oh, the same week as the OIG report too, and the same week that James Comey is also giving his interview about nonsense. Exactly.
That's not just like a fateful, lucky coincidence. It's about hijacking the narrative and distracting the public. And it's not distracting. At the very least, what they're trying to do is divide it so that you can't possibly, your average person can't possibly keep a beat on all the things tracking at the same time. So it diffuses the focus and also overwhelms the viewer, overwhelms the person taking in that information because it's almost too much to track on.
Yeah, even independent media, we can only keep up with so much and only report on so much in a given day and retain the attention of our audience at the same time. So then we have to pick and choose what we cover and what's most important, what will direct the most traffic. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's a form of media management. It's a form of psyops, and it's very, very effective. And so when we saw what happened with Zuckerberg and Facebook, and you and I had that conversation, I was not at all surprised when the timing for the bombing took place and the other things that got released. It provides media cover. And as far as the Koch brothers, and I don't know if they're the brothers, I think John Koch that you said.
Charles Koch Foundation, yeah.
Charles, okay. as far as their history, getting an interruption here. As far as their history, with how far back they go, polluting the narrative, polluting the information, polluting the academic circles. They have funded more think tanks, and it's almost an oxymoron. They have funded and exploratory committees and issues forums, and I mean, you would think that they were the most passionate learners in society, when in fact what they're doing is they are going into the academic circles, they are buying off a subject matter expert, and they are making sure that they are producing work, studies, information that supports their agenda. I mean, so what we're seeing with Facebook is, they're gonna turn this over to this third party, allegedly objective organization.
Yep.
Now, it's the same thing that Wall Street did when we had the economic collapse that we did with the housing bubble and the real estate transactions on Wall Street. Same exact thing. They did if you get a chance, people should watch the documentary Inside Jobs by Matt Damon. He narrates it. And it covers this in great detail, how they have all sorts of subject matter experts say that this speculative financing and all the things that were going on with the junk bonds and real estate, but that was all good. It was all good. It was all valid.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how that ended.
Yeah. It's definitely, I would say, a psych op in more than one level, because like you said, when you cover this many issues, you got to figure out, quote unquote, what's most important, right? So when you talk about lives that are at immediate risk, as humans, naturally that's what we gravitate towards when we put the Facebook stuff on the back burner, and we say we'll figure it out later. However, obviously that's just as important, because we know that obviously, or Coke wouldn't be invested in it. We know that Facebook controls in some way, form, or fashion who gets elected and who's taken seriously, who has the mandate, and indirectly or directly that affects who lives and who dies abroad and domestically. And so it is a challenge, but it's a challenge that I believe that a lot of us have kind of rose to accept. Even if it's not, our jobs, there are people every day who are constantly educating themselves and educating others on Facebook, Twitter, and otherwise, so that we can know. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have known that. Like we knew that Zuckerberg was on trial. I would say the majority of people still have not figured out that we're about to turn our data over to the Koch brothers, and their logic is, yeah, but at least Facebook won't have it anymore. And I'm thinking, what your solution is to the data problem and selling it is instead giving it away for free to the people who control, who you gave $900 million to our elections last year to control the outcome. So now they're going to use that data, obviously, to try to manipulate more outcomes. And it's almost like we're back to square one. Now, with that being said, I don't believe it'll work. I think that it worked for Obama. And I think that Obama, people forget, was a freaking anomaly, because he was the first black guy who ever legitimately stood a chance at winning. And, oh, by the way, he just happened to probably be the best public speaker in the history of the world. And he was also endorsed heavily by not just pop cultures, but very specifically the hip hop industry, and ended up winning 99% of the votes. So, or like the black vote. So like, yeah, you can have that data, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to apply it. But I think most importantly, what it shows is that the powers that be don't know how to do anything else. They use the same methodology to try and control and to try and dictate and to try and understand something that is totally new and separate from the type of research that you would be able to conduct.
Absolutely. And, I think, Nico, you should take heart in Tim Black and all the Elizabeth Boss, everybody who's out there, Katie Johnstone, who's doing their work, the people on this feed, all of them, everybody who's leaning forward trying to get the truth out. Because if you've had a chance to see, and if you haven't, another thing worth seeing, another segment worth seeing is Chris Hedges' most recent interview of Mark Crispin Mills, an NYU professor, one of the experts in journalism. He's a professor of journalism, and he's often quoted and highly regarded, although now I would say he's probably not, the neoliberals, they're not a big fan of his. But he talked about in the most recent drop that Chris Hedges did on RT, that he talked all about how ultimately he's optimistic, and it's something that we've talked about in our group, and it's something I think we all need to remember, that we aren't seeing the levels of intervention, the levels of nothing democracy and free speech and dissent. It's so overt, it's so in your face, that the takeaway from that is positive, which means that the systems that are currently in place, that are calling the shots, are under some serious threat. They have to feel threatened. They are feeling endangered. And if that is the case, they are a heck of a lot closer to being exposed and much more vulnerable than I think we even realize.
Yep.
Or we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing.
Yeah, you know what my motto is. They're not as smart as they pretend to be. Money can cover down for a lot of shortcomings in the intellect side. But on the other side of that, what you said about interventions, like there's another type of intervention we haven't seen as often, or at least as deliberate as we have in the past. It was easy to convince the world that there was WMDs and that it was a war against terror whenever we were kind of like disconnected and we were like, the government said it, okay, that's fine, yeah, I guess, whatever, that's cool, do what you gotta do, we'll go and fight. Now they've tried multiple times with Syria, and they're not getting the result they need they're not getting the mandate they need to get people overseas, like in Iraq, like in Afghanistan. They had to use the same legislation from the Afghanistan, the 9/11 attacks, just to get us into Iraq, to even justify it. So, but like people got out, and then of course Obama, it was a really weird situation because he ended up in a good way helping people get out the military, helping them transition out, getting retirement, getting severance pays, making sure they can get education once they get out. And a lot of people funneled themselves out of the military and unfortunately are messed up because they feel guilty about what they did. But now you can't get those people to want to rejoin if we don't believe in anything, if we don't believe in the war that we're going to be fighting in. You got a lot of vets now who you funnel through because of economy, because of the lack of education, or at least the lack of access to education. And now all those people are out. They're having kids. They're not letting their kids go into the military because a lot of those kids are now 18, 19 years old. Then you have the people who are just too woke to even think about going to the military. And then you have the elite class who would never go into the military. And so what are you going to do? You can't fight a war that nobody wants to fight. Suzanne, you still there? Oh, I think we might have just lost Suzanne again. She can call us back. If anybody else wants to call in, please feel more than free to. But people, it's so important to. I know we talk about how crazy things are now. And some people feel like things are hopeless, and it gets frustrating, people. It gets frustrating. Trust me. I wake up every day with a headache. I wake up every day with anxiety. I don't like reading the news. I like being educated. I like being aware, but I don't like reading the news because I'm like, I can't take another smackdown today from this crazy oligarchy that we're dealing with. But when you look at the situation, not from the vacuum of negativity, but in its totality, you start to see the truth, which is that we're winning. We're actually winning. I believe Alan is back on the line. Alan, is that you, man?
Hey, Nico?
Yes.
Hey, I just, we didn't get a chance to talk about the case.
You want to go ahead and tell them about the case that's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Go ahead. That's perfectly fine, man. Go ahead and tell them about the case you have going on.
The name of the case is called Laverne versus House of Representatives. It's been in court since April of last year, but of course the public hasn't been allowed to know that it exists. What the case is about is that the very first amendment ever proposed to the Constitution was to protect our representation, and it deals with apportionment, and it limits each representative to only 60,000 people that they can represent, which meant that as the population grew, your representation is closer to who you are and where you live, not one member of your county or one member of your state or one member of 5 or 6 cities. Or it wasn't meant to be like that. So because the House of Representatives belongs to us, the people, that's our voice in the lawmaking process. The Senate is the state's voice, and then we're off the federal government's voice, which is why the Vice President presides over the Senate.
Yeah.
So when you look at things in that term, this case is landmark. We have proven that the documents of ratification actually exist. We went to the states who were supposed to relay back their votes back to Washington, and they didn't. So while it was considered unratified, it was actually ratified. And we have proved that, and we wrote a book about it. The book is on my website, but the point is, whether you read the book or not, the point is that the research has been authenticated by Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Princeton, and Oxford. So they tried everything that they could possibly come up with to get the case thrown out.
Mm-hmm.
The next measure was just to try to remove the plaintiffs from the case. All of that failed, and we're waiting for notification for oral argument, which really shouldn't be a problem because the facts are the facts. The law is the law. We're not fighting to create law. We're fighting to hold them accountable to the law that exists, which they have ignored for the last 100 years.
Yeah, which is actually kind of crazy. I don't even know how that was able to happen for so long, if that was one of the first things ratified. It was probably by design, of course, but wow. So what stage are you all at?
We're about to start oral arguments. We're waiting right now for a court date.
Good stuff, good stuff.
All procedural. There was a round of representation where all 50 attorney generals for the United States had to be broken down into 4 groups. Each one of those groups has an attorney. The state and the state, each state, we had to serve each state representative in their upper and lower house in all 50 states. We had to serve every member in the House of Representatives, every member in the Senate, the Vice President, the President, and the Secretary of Chamber of Commerce. That's what made this case so hard, because it was hard to serve all of those people, because nobody had the money to do it.
Yeah, of course. Well, where can they find the details of this case, and where can they follow the case at? Before we take another call, where can they find the case at?
The case is called Laverne versus House of Representatives. Laverne is spelled Laverenge.
Okay.
You can find it online. The easiest access will probably be to look at the links that I have pinned to my Twitter account, which is AJC for others, at Twitter.
Got you.
So,
all right.
Those links are there. so everybody will know. But in a couple of days, we should find out when oral argument actually begins.
Fantastic. Appreciate you coming in and telling everybody about that case. It's a super important case, everybody. Y'all should definitely check it out because what Alan has, he's blogged about this constantly and he's gone on other people's shows and gone into detail about it. But essentially, what happens is if we win this case, it gets blown. The entire establishment, the entire system gets blown wide open. And interestingly enough, because of who we have in office right now, and because there's kind of like a disarray, there's like loyalty, but like not really. And there's coverage that you can avoid, but then there's some coverage that you can't because there's all of this loyalty. And we could actually get the amount of representatives in office that we're supposed to have according to the Constitution. Then that's huge for us. Suzanne, you are back on the line.
That's crazy, huh? I mean, this really has not happened with other callers before.
No, you're the only caller that has dropped multiple times in a row, inexplicably.
That is bizarre, but
it seems to be pretty normal for us.
Yeah. You definitely don't want you and me talking too much or a network connecting. And I'm going to revert back to what we were talking about before, that there must be some much more fear about what we're doing and truth to what we're saying than perhaps we're even aware of. It is strange.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The one thing that they don't want is people to have hope that there's a chance that they could win, because they've been able to keep us suppressed for so long by making those victories seem insurmountable.
Absolutely. I mean, if we have despair and that takes hold, and with despair comes the decision to give up,
mm-hmm.
and we relent, then they win. I mean, it's exactly what they want. Even if all we're doing is exactly what we're doing, which is having what is, I believe, is still protected by our First Amendment, having our rights to free speech and to dissent.
Yeah. But go ahead. Before you were interrupted by Big Brother, what were you saying?
I don't remember now. My train of thought. I think I was talking about the Koch brothers. And I had mentioned Inside Job, the documentary about what had happened in the situation with the housing meltdown.
Yeah.
With the banking industry and how it was proven. I mean, this is information that was, I even want to say WikiLeaks had tapped in and had somehow acquired access to internal emails and information. And they interviewed many of the top academians and professors, and like we're talking about, the London School of Economics, Princeton, University of Chicago. So some of the Stanford, some of the top leading institutions of economic theory and thought, and all that credibility, and they were on tape in this documentary, literally, uttering for words to be able to defend the bogus papers they published, and then didn't want to answer questions about who funded their study.
Oh, it sounds like the Russiagate people who wrote books, and then when they got interviewed about the books, they're like, mm-hmm. Yeah, so where's the proof at? Oh, well, we have proof. He went to Russia one time. Well, no, we said where's the proof at? Well, and they, for the Russiagate, by the way, they got as much proof about Russiagate as they do as Assad committing all these crimes that we have literally physically no proof of. Assad has come out openly, time and time again, said, if you can provide me proof, I will stand in front of a court and, you can hold me accountable. No one has been able to do so. And it's a repeated pattern.
If anything, we can show proof by that New York Times article and there were two articles that I recently read just in the last couple of days where Hillary Clinton admitted in an interview that the United States provided chemical weapons to the rebels in Syria.
Yeah.
So who provided that? And then there was also the drop by I believe the New York Times also produced a report that says, that verified that the United States actually did oversee the destruction of Assad's chemical weapons inventory, his supply. And they verified that all these weapons were destroyed. So which is it?
Yeah. It was Fiorella from the network, from Convo Couch, just posted, some interesting facts about Assad, talking about the fact that the Assad family belongs to the tolerant Islam of Alawid orientation. Syrian women have the same exact rights to study, to health, to education as men. Syrian women are not forced to wear the burqa, the hijab, or anything of Sharia law. And Sharia law is actually considered unconstitutional. I wonder why Saudi Arabia may have a problem with them. Syria is the only Arab country with a secular constitution and does not tolerate Islamic extremist movements at all. By the way, we created Islamist extremist movements, in case you're wondering. Yeah, we concocted the books in Nebraska. You can actually look that up. We created the books in the factory in Nebraska. Roughly 10% of the Syrian population belongs to one of many Christian denominations and is fully integrated into Syrian political and social life. In other Arab countries, Christian populations are less than 1% due to the sustained hostility. And Syria banned all genetically modified seeds, stating that the decision was made to preserve human health. He's an animal, Suzanne. He's a damn animal. Oh, did we lose Suzanne again? Man, this is interesting. This is literally, people, this has never happened. I've never even lost a caller. We've maybe had people cut in and out, but I've never even lost a caller. And Suzanne has literally dropped from our phone lines, dropping truth bombs 3 times now. Funny enough, she also had her internet cut when she was talking about a similar topic, but it actually said that all of her internet was perfectly fine, perfectly well connected. There was no issues with her router. So, but Suzanne's kind of up there. She's really involved in more than one way on the economic side, the business world, and the political world. And so I'm pretty sure they do a pretty damn good job of keeping tabs on her, unfortunately. But the guy is diabolical. Listen, people. It's media. So throughout history, there have been 5 popes of Syrian origin. Religious tolerance is unique in that area specifically. Prior to the current civil war, Syria was one of the only peaceful nations in the area, having avoided major wars and internal conflict as well because of the maintained level of peace, prosperity, and tolerance. Syria clearly and unequivocally opposes Zionism and the Israeli government, as all people should. Following the massive oil find in Syria's Golan Heights occupied by Israel in 1967, Netanyahu recently asked Obama to recognize its annexation of the territory. To consolidate its hold, plans are afoot to quadruple the Israeli settlers' numbers to 100,000. And the 2 most important things: Syria is one of the only countries in the Middle East without debts to the International Monetary Fund, or known as the IMF. Pre-invasion Libya used to be another one. Iran is the only other one. What a coincidence. Syria is the only Mediterranean country which holds power of its oil companies, with an oil reserve of 2,500 million. That's 2.5 million barrels of oil. The operation, which has avoided privatization and is reserved exclusively for state-owned enterprises. So now, this is coming from Fiorella from the Convo Couch for our network. So now ask yourself, why are we truly attempting to overthrow yet another government? And what exactly are we hoping to fix here? If the recent invasions and illegal assassinations of presidents like Gaddafi, like Saddam, have taught us anything, it should be the understanding of the blowback effect of such lawless actions by the West and the vacuum of chaos that supersedes it. Debt conquers, I think that's what she meant, but invent a reason to invade and destroy, then offer trillions of dollars from the IMF to rebuild and fund it. If you don't know how consistent that goal has been, that's not only something that we have practice religiously, but that was literally the requirement, essentially, of Eastern European accession into the EU. You were put on strict austerity programs because of the destruction that may or may not have been caused by either the USSR or the West's involvement in Eastern Europe or Central Europe, or regime changes that the West has instigated in Eastern Europe or Western Europe. You were put on strict austerity programs that obviously was guided by the IMF that the United States created. And then, so we give you all this money to rebuild, conveniently paid back by the control of your oil fields, free access to build gas pipelines in the West, sugar cane, we had a sugar cartel in Cuba, with Romania and Bulgaria, it was real estate and things like that. So that was from Fiorella. Definitely go check her Twitter out. Fiorella, FIORELLA _ Isabella, ISA. Hold up, is it? Let me make sure I'm telling y'all the right stuff. I want to make sure I get the right stuff. Thank you very much. I don't know if you're listening, Fiorella, but appreciate the information. It's Fiorella at Fiorella, FIORELLA _ IM. And that is Fiorella of the Convo Couch, dropping straight fire about the Syria conflict and how it currently relates to, and how it has related to conflicts that we've had with Middle Eastern sovereign governments that are totally separate from the IMF, from the national banks, in the past. So, moral of the story today, folks, I hope that you all learned a little something from us. I hope that it was an educational experience, and I hope that people are paying attention to all the consistencies that we're seeing amongst, or the consistencies and the BS, but the inconsistencies in the reason and rationale the BS was committed. Like Tim Canova said yesterday, so why so quick to attack? And better yet, if you care about humanitarian efforts so much, why are we so silent on Yemen? Why did we vote against a bill to stop funding Saudi Arabia and take action against them for Yemen? And when are we going to start changing? Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Mikasa Sukasa. And always remember, more than anything else, people, find your balance. Peace.